sermon is called, Who Changed the Price Tags? Now, when we go buy something, it's always nice to know what it's going to cost. You pick something up, there's no price on it, you say this is $5. You stand in line, you get to the cash with people behind you and they say $46, and you say, then you have to make a decision. Am I going to say I don't want it, it's too much money, and be embarrassed or pay the money? It's nice to know what the price tag is. And it's really, when somebody changes it and catches you off guard, it's even worse. Now, there's a book on leadership that talks about a bell curve. Now, a bell curve is a graph that shows it goes up like this, and it reaches this, and it goes back down, just the shape of a bell curve. Well, what happens in business is if you're being very successful, you started here and you're going up and you're gaining customers or whatever your business is and you're getting better, and then you start to say, we're successful. And when you do that, you start to level off. And what happens when you get to the top? A bell's not flat at the top, it curves back down. And eventually, if you don't do something, you go back down into where you were before. And so the only option is when you get to the top, you start another bell curve. You start going up again. And none of this is safe. You have to risk things to be able to do this. Because things are changing all the time. There's always somebody there that in the same kind of business that's willing to do that, and they'll take over your customers. Now, you can always do the safe bet. That's what the people in Jerusalem were doing. The Jewish leaders were not gamblers. They were always taking the safe bet. They were playing it safe so that they wouldn't lose. Now, don't get me wrong, you can gain a lot by always playing the safe bet. One of the richest men in the U.S., the guy's name is Warren Buffett. He's one of the richest men, and he's always plays the safe bet. He never invests in anything that he hasn't studied very carefully, so he knows it inside note. But in a way, it's not a safe bet, because what he's doing is he's saying, okay, I made some money, and I'm going to reinvest. I'm going to start that bell curve again, because I'm going to study some other product, some other investment, so I'll know if it's safe. Well, as I said, the Jewish community, the Jewish leaders were always playing the safe bet. They were taking whatever was the lowest risk. And they had gained things too. They were able to work with the Roman oppressors, and they had a limited amount of power. And then Jesus came along. He came along, he was the Messiah. And the Magi came, and they said, where is this king, born King of the Jews? We want to worship him. We saw his star in the east. And you would think that people would jump up and take this bet. But they knew it wasn't a safe bet, because Herod was not one to share power. So no one said to the Magi, can we go with you? Can we see this star? Can we follow you? Go with you. They all sat and waited to let somebody else take the safe bet and suffer the consequences. Well, it's 30 years later now, and Jesus is doing miracles every day. Wonderful things. And every time he does a miracle, the religious leaders are offered an opportunity to take this leap of faith, but they refuse every time, and they come to the point where they plan to make sure that he doesn't do any more miracles, because they understand that if he continues to grow in popularity, pretty soon there won't be any safe bets. There'll only be this risky ones. Well, if you remember the story of David and his men, before he became king, this was just before he became king, he was living in a Philistine city, given his own town, called Ziklag. And he was given his own town, and he went with all the other armies of the Philistines to fight the Israelites. And the other leaders of the Philistines said, you can't come with us, you will trade alliances in the middle of the battle, and then that'll be awful. So they sent them home. And that's where we come to in this passage in 1 Samuel 30, verse 1 to 6. Then it happened when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day that the Amalekites had made a raid of the Negev and on Ziklag, and had overthrown Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and all that were in it, both small and great, without killing anyone, and carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people that were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. And in verse 6 it says, moreover, David was greatly distressed because the people spoke of stoning him. For all the people were embittered, every one because of his sons and daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Now, they had a safe bet and a long shot. The safe bet was, let it all go. You've lost your family, you've lost, because they had traveled for 3 days, they were tired, they had wept for a day, nobody was, let's go, this is great, we've had a good pep talk, and they don't know where the army is, how many days off they are, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days lead on them, they don't know if they follow them, when they will catch up to them, maybe it will be in a fortified city. And now they've traveled all this time, and they're tired, they have not enough arms, as in war equipment, and they're going to start a siege of a city. They're unprepared. So the safe bet is to stone David and leave. Everybody starts again. But they take the long bet. David says, I've talked to God, and God says if we follow them, we will get our people back. And you know the story. They go for a couple days, and they reach a river, and 200 of the 600 men say, I can't go any farther. I'm too tired. And so only 400 go. But they do. They achieve their goal. They get everyone back. All their wives and their children are all rescued. Well, there's another story of not taking the safe bet. Gideon, and the people I like about the story of Gideon is the 300 men. You see, Gideon called for men to come to the battle. 30,000 men came, and they were going to fight against 100,000 men. And it was still impossible odds, but God said, you've got too many. And they sent 20,000 away, and you got too many still, and he only kept 300. And here's what it says in Judges 8. Judges 7, verse 8. So the 300 men took the people's provisions and their trumpets in their hand, and Gideon sent all the other men of Israel, each to his own tent, but retained the 300 men, and the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. And then if you go to verse 16, it says, and he divided the 300 men in 3 companies, and he put trumpets and empty pitchers in their hand, and all of them, and torches inside the pitchers. And he said to them, look at me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outskirts of the camp, do as I do. Now, you see, this is not the safe bet. For one thing, he sent everybody away, and that you only got the 300 who are willing to take this horrible risk that has no chance of success. And then Gideon says, look, we're going to do something crazy, and I know you don't understand, but just do what I do. And I can see the men in the dark saying, I can't even see him. Here we're hiding behind rocks in the dark, and I can't see what he's going to do anyway. How are we going to do this? And the whole point is, when you do something like this, it's the most far out possibility, and you want to make sure you do it exactly right, like synchronized swimmers. And most of them don't know what's going to happen. And so you know it happens, that people are going to say, okay, so Gideon pulls out his torch and smashes his pitcher and yells and blows his trumpet, and then people start to do it haphazardly. And see, the whole thing is that there's no chance of this winning. This long bet, there's no chance. The only chance is they are trusting in the God that they remember from bringing them out of Egypt and all these miracles, and no one's worshipped him for years, but they're trusting that he will make all this happen, even if they get it wrong. They don't pull out the pitcher, and they don't throw it right, and they don't blow the trumpet right. It's still going to succeed because God is in it. Well, remember I started out with that, who changed the price tags? Well, many years ago, before there was barcodes and they don't even put price tags and everything, a group of men, or men and women, broke into a big department store. And their plan wasn't to steal anything. They were going to change the price tags. And they spent hours in there. And they took the price tag off the TV and they put it on the can of soup or the bar of soap. So you could go in and buy a TV for $3 and a bar of soap for $700. And it was a whole big joke. But the whole point is, in this passage, Jesus is saying, don't be fooled. Let me tell you what the price tag is and what is proper, because people have changed the price tag. The devil has told you that this is what it's going to cost you. But it's not. If you pursue that, the cost is going to be eternal separation from God. He's saying in this passage, make sure you understand that the devil has changed the price tags, and you won't know until it's too late. Well, let's look at the passage. Number one is, what's the cross worth? In verse 24 it says, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. I'm going to say this, and you'll follow along. Be the bacon and not the egg. Now, there's a joke about a pig and a chicken are responsible for getting the breakfast for a group of men. And the chicken says, well, I provided the eggs. What's your problem, Mr. Pig? And Mr. Pig is saying, well, if I provide the bacon, that's a lot more. I have to be completely committed to this, to provide the bacon, because it's a one-time deal. Well, that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, if you choose, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. It's not like, if you want to follow me, you can add that to the list of the other things you do. No, it has to be front and center. This is not, when he says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he's not saying, please, please, please follow me, and I guarantee you your life will be great, there will be no problems, you will have a wonderful life. It's none of those things. It's not the safe bet. It's not the cautious choice. In fact, it's the most dangerous one you could think of taking upon yourself. And to make it even more clear, Jesus said, take up your cross. And he knew that everyone who heard that understood the end result of taking up your cross. If you took up your cross, it meant you were going to be crucified. There was only one path, and it ended in horrible shame and pain and death. So he wasn't saying, look, this is going to be easy and wonderful. He was going to say, if you're going to follow me, it's going to cost you. I've gone to car shows forever, and I actually judged some of the car shows. And there's two types of cars at car shows, not Chev and Ford. Drivers and trailer queens. A driver is one that somebody jumped in Halifax, and they drove to Moncton. And there's bugs on the windshield, and there's bugs in the dash, and there's chips on the fenders, and there's dirt from the road construction on the car. And a trailer queen is one where somebody drove it out of the garage after they cleaned it into a covered trailer, and it was pulled to Moncton. And they drove it back out of the trailer, and it was parked. And I remember looking at some of these cars, and there wasn't any dirt underneath. The paint was as shiny underneath as the paint was on the top. They were beautiful. But the problem was, Jesus is saying, look, you can't be my servant and be a trailer queen. You can't only come to church on Sunday in your best duds and then take them home and put them away and never serve me the rest of the week. I watched a TV show about this man had bought a wonderful Mercedes red coupe, and he drove it for 15 years. 1970 and 1985, he drove it into his garage that was hooked to his house. It was a nice garage. It wasn't a ramshack place. It was, and then he forgot about it. He left it there. Stuff was piled around it. And you think, well, it's been in a nice, safe garage. They were going to clean it. His son hired somebody to clean it so that his father could look at it, see it, and maybe they're going to restore it. It was awful. 35 years of never looking after it. There was mold on everything, the seats and the upholstery, and the guy came in what you would call a hazmat suit. He wore a hazmat suit because it smelled so bad, and there was so much mold, and there was mouse nests under the hood, and so he had a complete face mask over his face to clean this car. Well, God doesn't want us to be work. I gave my life to the Lord, and then I parked it in the garage, and that's where it's set. And 35 years later, I'm expecting it to be just perfect, but it's awful. I've forgotten how to serve God. I've forgotten how to love God. I've forgotten how to pray or read my Bible. I haven't done any of that stuff. But Jesus is saying, don't do that. Well, number 2 is the new math. Verse 25 and 26 says, whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Jim Elliot was one of the men that went to the Auca Indians. And he was killed by the Auca Indians. But he said this, it's no fool who gives what he it's no fool who gives up what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. He understood that if you protect your life, at the end of your life, you may have accumulated a lot of things, but you can't keep those. He's saying, I would prefer to plan to lose my life and gain all this stuff in heaven. Well, this is a very serious question about what are you going to do with your life? If you save your life, you will lose it. You can only save it by losing it for my sake, Jesus is saying. Now, think of this, I'll tell you this story. There's a man in the desert, and he's walking in the desert. It's 140 degrees in this heat, and he's got water, and he understands that in a day's walk, there's a well. he can get more water. But he has to walk to the well. And it's noon, the day before he gets to the well, and he's drank the last of his water. And it's really hot, and he knows that the well is there. He knows he's going to find it. And he arrives at the well, and he is really thirsty. And there's 2 jugs of water sitting beside the well. And the 2 jugs of water have a sign on them that say, in order to prime the pump, you have to pour both jugs of water, all of it, down the well. And now he has to make a choice. He has to believe the sign and know that he could drink one of the jugs and pour one down, but maybe then it wouldn't work. And he knows that there's an abundance of water in the well, but he has to take this bet. And so he has to pour both jugs down the water, jugs of water down the well, and then start the pump. He has to prime that pump. And eventually the water comes, but it only comes because he had the faith to do this. You see, Jesus is saying the same thing. I want your life. Die to yourself. Let it all go and serve me only. Every other option ends in eternal death, the death of your soul. Number 3 is the inevitable return. In verse 27 it says, for the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and he will repay every man according to his deeds. When I read that, he will repay every man according to his deeds, you think to yourself, well, that payday seems equal parts reward and impending doom. Because he will repay every man according to his deeds. Doesn't say all of your deeds are going to be good and you're going to get rewards for them. So on the surface, this might sound like, well, I best be good. That's a nose to the grindstone for me. But it isn't. It's a golden opportunity. But the golden opportunity is only for those that start back in verse 24. It says, if anyone wishes to come after me. I have had a number of discussions with the guy at work about heaven and hell. And the obvious thing is that only those who accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior go to heaven. And so he says to me, well, what about those guys in jail that get jail yard religion? Are they going to heaven and I'm not? I'm a good person. And so he's asking 2 questions, really. The first question is, who gets to go to heaven? What's the price? Well, there's a couple verses that you will know immediately. There's none righteous, no, not one. And this other verse is, all fall short of the glory of God. So the answer to the first question is, only wicked people go to heaven, because that's all there are. There are only wicked people. All fall short of the glory of God. There are no good people go to heaven. The only people that go to heaven are the ones that understand that anything I have is not worthy. The Bible calls them filthy rags. Anything I have to give to God is not worthy. So the people that go to heaven are the ones that say, I accept that there's nothing I have that's good. I accept that I can only fall on the mercy of Jesus and recognize that it's his death and resurrection that will save me. So that's the answer to the first question, is there's nothing you can bring. It doesn't matter how good you are. But the second question is, well, what about the good things I do? Because people do good things. People of all religions do good things. Atheists do good things. What about those? Is God going to, when it says he will repay every man according to his deeds? Well, the answer to that is that for the Christian, they go to heaven and you will receive rewards in heaven for what you do as a Christian. God will reward you. It's all over the Bible that God says he will reward you. But what about the person who doesn't go to heaven? What about the person that ends up in hell? And he did good things. Well, the answer is that he will be judged. It says here, repaid every man according to his deeds. What it means is there will be a scale of punishment in hell. Some people will be punished more than others. But it still doesn't help, right? Okay, I've done lots of good deeds, I'm in hell, and I'll be punished less. It doesn't have the whole, the crowns of righteousness that you receive, shiny aura around it. So you could agree that it really isn't a reward, it's more like a less punishment. Well, see, the Bible says that Jesus died to take away the sins of the world, but there are lots of people who are saying, no, I'm going to keep those sins, thank you very much. I don't need you to take those away. I'll arrange my own salvation. And Jesus says, fine, thank you very much. I'm okay with that. That's what free will means. Well, the last verse is kind of strange, and I've always wondered about this verse. 28 says, truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And I've always wondered about this verse, because you know that all these men died, they all died, and Jesus still hasn't returned, and it's 2,000 years later. And what does he mean that some of those men that are standing here will not see death? Well, it's not as hard as you think. The answer is that someone 1,000 years ago decided to put chapters and verses in our Bible. And what happens is we read to the end of chapter 16 and we stop. But if you continue to verse 17, chapter 17, which would have continued if you didn't have this break that wasn't there originally, says, 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up into the high mountain by themselves, and he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun. What happened was that these people, 3 men, Peter, James, and John, saw him coming in his kingdom. They saw him, this is what I'll look like when I'll be transfigured. This is my appearance. So Matthew asked the question and answered it, but we don't see it because we stop at the end of chapter 16 and we don't travel to 17. And so it's one of those questions that you have that's not really a question, it's only a question because we're looking with 2019 eyes. Well, let me get back to who changed the price tags. This is one of those times where Jesus is giving you some hard facts right out in plain sight. He had just told him he was going to die on the cross, and Peter in verse 22 had said, Lord, God forbid it, Lord. This shall never happen to you. And he says, get thee behind me, Satan, because if he knew that option was available for him not to go to the cross, but he knew it would be a mistake for him, because that's why he came, and especially for us. There's other places in the Bible where it says, Jesus spoke some words that were hard sayings, and people said, I can't stand these hard sayings, and in mass, many of his followers left him. And so this is one of those hard sayings. He's saying to you, if you follow Jesus, you won't have a perfect life. You will lose some of your problems, but you will get another set of problems, and they may be just as hard to deal with as the ones you had. So he's saying, don't become a Christian, don't become one of my followers, thinking that this is a way out of all your problems, because it isn't. There was an article in the newspaper, not Moncton newspaper, another newspaper, Chronicle Herald. And it talked about how that conservative Christians had voted conservative for the Conservative Party traditionally. But those things are changing. Now, I'm not telling you who to vote for. Don't get me wrong. What I'm telling you is, traditionally, all of the parties understood that there was a block of voters who were conservative Christians, and they understood that they had to give them something. We will do this for you if you vote for us. But that number is becoming smaller and smaller. And young conservative Christians are not necessarily voting for the Conservative Party. If you remember 30 years ago, when they talked about gay marriage, no one was in favor of gay marriage because that block of voters was bigger. And they were accommodating them. But it's becoming smaller and smaller. Andrew Scheer said, I am pro-life, but I'm not going to touch the debate on abortion. Because he understands that if he says, I'm going to fix this problem, there's not a big enough group of voters. And because of that, because of what's going to happen is people are going to say, we're not fixing your problems. We did in years gone by, but we don't care now because you're too small a group of, you conservative Christians are too small a group for us to pander to your needs. And what will happen is eventually people will say, we're limiting how you can worship, we're limiting what you can say, we're limiting if you get a tax credit, all those things will be taken away. And what will happen is that safe bet, we have a safe bet, kind of. We can come to church, we can worship together, we can sing songs, if you can follow the hymn book. And we can do all those things, but eventually it'll come to the point where it'll look more like the Christians of the New Testament, where they couldn't follow Jesus without a great cost. And that's going to come to us eventually. In Canada, it's becoming more and more secular. People aren't caring about what Christians think. But Jesus is okay with unsafe bets. He's okay with that. He wants us to take up our cross and follow him. And we take up our cross and we say, we get up in the morning and we say, we're going to take up our cross, we're going to take an unsafe bet, and we're going to watch Jesus do a miracle on our behalf. And sometimes he will. And he will do amazing things for us. He did it for Gideon. He took those 300 men who didn't exactly know when to throw their jar and blow their trumpet, and he saved Israel. And when Daniel got up in the morning after the proclamation that said you couldn't pray to anyone, except King Darius, he got up in the morning and he prayed to God in front of the window, and he knew that he would end up in the lion's den. He took the long bet, the bet that would be no chance of it coming. Well, what we need to do is every morning we get up, we say, Lord, I want you to push me right close up to the Red Sea with the Egyptian army coming, and I want to see you come through. I want to see you do a miracle so that I can say to my children and my grandchildren, do you remember when? And God came through. But he also wants us to know in advance that sometimes he's not going to come through with a miracle that saves us. He's going to come through with a miracle that brings us to heaven. And he wants us to make sure that we don't accept that bet, that price tag that has been changed, and we say we're going to play it safe, and we get the wrong, We choose the wrong thing. We don't choose the must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. We say, well, if we just do this, we'll be safe. And we don't understand that the price tags have been changed. God still wants us to follow us, even if we know that it's going to be a very expensive follow. Let's pray. Lord Jesus,